Hello, YouTube world, and welcome back to the Salty Socks podcast. We once again want to thank everybody for the tremendous support that we got on the last video. Once again, Joseph, we broke 130 views, which completely unexpected, but I'm really glad that people are liking these videos. I personally hate them. So I'm glad that people love them. And we're back with another one tonight, Joseph. So tell the fans what we're discussing tonight.
Today, we're talking about everyone's favorite movie, The Last Jedi. Los Últimos Jedi. Is that Spanish? Is that how you say it?
That was, and if I didn't know any better, I would think that you came from a Spanish-speaking country.
Thanks, Margarita. Well, the rest of the movie that we're going to be discussing today is all of our likes and dislikes with The Last Jedi. So Sean and I have picked 3 likes and 3 dislikes for each of us, and we're going to discuss it now with you today.
And I would like to add as well that this week is actually the 6-month anniversary of the theatrical release of The Last Jedi, so it's kind of this cool anniversary video we're doing. And that movie had so much hype and expectation, and this video, I feel like, has a lot of hype and expectation on our channel because it's kind of the reason we started this podcast. Am I right? This was the whole reason we started, was to talk about Last Jedi. So hopefully, unlike the real movie, hopefully this video is good and actually lives up to the expectation.
So smash that like button and tell the world that you like this video, even if you didn't like The Last Jedi.
All right, since you love The Last Jedi so much, Joseph, I think you should go first with the likes. What your top 3 things from The Last Jedi, what did you like about it?
Okay, there's going to be no particular order in these 3.
Okay.
The first one I want to talk about is the beautiful moments in the film. I don't think there's any doubt in anyone's mind that this was a beautifully crafted movie. And there are so many great moments, and I am stressing the word moments because I feel like that's what this movie brought to us. The Holdo maneuver moment. The lightsaber in midair between Kylo and Rey. The force projection of Luke and the reveal that he's not actually there. Just all of these moments in the movie. Oh, gosh. And who can forget Leia freaking McGonagalling herself back to Hogwarts? There's so many cool parts of this movie that it's... What? Are you disagreeing with me already?
I was agreeing with everything until you started talking about the McGonagalling again, which is a phrase you are trying to force upon the world. He will not give it up.
Stop trying to make fetch happen. It's not going to happen.
I will give it to you that Leia McGonagalling herself back to Hogwarts was a moment. The question is, was it a good moment? My answer is no.
Well, regardless, it's a moment, okay? And I think it's a good one.
Okay. What's your number 2?
Number 2 is it builds on the mystical properties of the Force, which I feel like of the other movies that we have, 1, 2, and 3, and 7, I'm not talking about 4, 5, and 6 because those build the Force from scratch. But I feel like of our new movies, this one is the biggest one to show us more things about the Force. Things like Force projections, we haven't seen before, surviving in space, and my favorite is the Force is not lineage-based, which I feel like we kind of thought we were in up until Episode 8, when it was kind of revealed to us that it's not really based on lineage. She's not a Skywalker or Kenobi. You're making a face?
I agree that it does a lot for the Force. I do like that, and I like the adding to the lore of the Force, especially like Yoda in the Force Ghost scene where he can call down the lightning. I thought that's interesting and kind of cool. But I think the prequels make it pretty clear that the Force is not based on lineage.
I need a midichlorian count.
The reading is off the chart.
Over 20,000.
I think the original trilogy is where it kind of swings back to the lineage thing.
I can agree with
But there's so many Force users in the prequel, and they don't ever say that it's based on lineage. But I do understand what you're saying. From episode 4 on, it is the Skywalker line. We don't see like any other Force users except for Yoda. And so,
I guess,
okay.
and even in the prequels, the main character is a Skywalker, right?
That's true.
Other things, and I like that you brought up Yoda and the Force tree, because we see an ancient Jedi temple. We see
Sacred Jedi texts.
and Jedi relics. I mean, there's so much building of the Force in this movie, and that's why I like it. And no mention of midichlorians in sight.
Yeah, I forgot about I always forget about midichlorians until someone brings it up, and I'm like, oh yeah, that was weird.
Strike
Cool.
that from
Okay.
the record. Okay, my last one.
I think that was well thought out. I enjoyed that reasoning. What is your number 3?
Okay, my last one is the clear and awesome character development of all of our main characters. Rey's character development, Kylo's, Poe's, Finn's, even Leia. I love that each one of them has their own conflict that they need to resolve, and they do by the end of the movie. And that, to me, makes the movie for me. I love seeing Rey's conflict with her and Kylo, and then not knowing anything about her parents, and then coming to a realization that she doesn't have famous parents, and how she has to come to terms with that. And Poe, how he's a trigger-happy flyboy, and how he has to learn to be a leader. And Kylo, who looks up to Snoke, but then is put in his place at the very beginning and kind of sheds his helmet. I mean, it's just awesome.
Okay. I want to agree with you so badly on this. I want to agree that, and I do agree that almost every character does have character development, which is good. The problem to me, again, is this question of, is it good character development? And I'll get to my likes and dislikes, obviously, so I won't go too far into it, but I think that only some of the characters have good character development.
Okay.
I think a lot of them have bad character development.
Are we thinking of 2 in particular that don't have good character development?
That are good?
That don't have good ones?
Oh, I'm thinking of only 2 that have good, and the rest have bad. I flipped the script on you. Oh, gosh.
Okay, so that's my 3 likes. Let's hear your likes, Sean.
Okay. So some of mine are similar to yours. The first one is, I'll just get into this character development. Kylo and Rey, to me, are the highlight of the movie.
As they should be.
As they should be. I agree. Their scenes are the best scenes. Their story arc is by far the most interesting. By the end of the movie, I only really cared about... Actually, I remember when I walked out the first time I saw it, I only cared about Kylo. I even was kind of like Rey. I was on the fence, like, Rey's not as interesting anymore. Kylo's the only interesting person left in this entire movie.
Wow. Huh.
But the Rey-Kylo relationship was so good. Like, the way that Snoke bridged their minds, these long-distance conversations they're having from across the galaxy. It was so interesting. It was a new aspect, again, of the Force we've never seen. I loved it. Culminating in the throne room scene, their lightsaber battle with the Praetorian Guards, actually not even probably, for me, is the best scene in the movie. And so I loved that. I thought their character development was great.
Is that scene a lightsaber duel? Let me ask you that.
I don't think it is a lightsaber duel. I think that it is a lightsaber battle. Okay, this is the semantics of the lightsaber duel. I think of a lightsaber duel as everyone fighting has lightsabers, and they are clashing lightsabers with each other in a duel.
Okay.
That's my definition. I understand maybe other people don't have that definition. Okay, so moving on. Kylo and Rey, I loved it.
Totally agree.
Number 2, also similar to yours, Crate. I thought Crate was another highlight of this movie for me because up until Crate, none of the settings particularly interested me or impressed me. And so when we get to Crate, the visual of the red salt and the speeder sequence was so cool. This old abandoned rebel outpost base was so cool. I really liked, I'm not trying to link every video we talk about to Solo, but I'm going to right now. I love the Chewie-Rey relationship on the Falcon, and to get to see Chewbacca do something meaningful, which is pilot this Falcon through this mineral cave, I thought that sequence was amazing, and it kind of gives this homage to Chewbacca as like, yeah, he's an awesome pilot, okay? He's awesome, and by himself, he'll fly that Millennium Falcon through that thing while Rey's shooting down TIE fighters and stuff like that. I thought the whole thing was good. So I really, really liked everything on Crate. And after we see Crate and it's so visually stunning, it makes me, I won't go too far into this because I don't want to get into dislikes, but it makes me want more like, man, with today's technology, I would have loved to see more of the galaxy and more visually stunning places like Crate as backdrops to these scenes in this story that we're seeing. So I thought Crate was awesome. Okay, number 3. My third thing that I loved, and you mentioned already, the Holdo maneuver. I think that is like, you talked about moments in the movie. I think that is a really cool moment. Even if it didn't reach its potential, and we've both talked about this, there's a lot of talk on the internet about how instead of Holdo, it should have been Akbar who pilots this ship and goes kamikaze, which would have been cool. Or even I was thinking, even if Akbar was on the ship with Holdo and Holdo like gives the order or something, and Akbar's the one that like punches it in, or
with his fishy claws.
Yes. I don't know if, actually, I don't even know if Akbar outranked Holdo or not, or who outranked who. But I still think the Akbar thing aside, I still think the Holdo maneuver, obviously visually stunning. It's something we haven't seen in Star Wars before. It's kind of like this. It does kind of illustrate the desperation of the Resistance and where they find themselves. That it's like, if she doesn't do something, the movie is over and there's no episode 9 because everyone's about to die.
Yep.
And so it was kind of, it just was this interesting concept of she goes into hyperspace and decimates the First Order fleet. And it was obviously visually really cool how the sound goes out and it's just like silence and still and the light. And so I thought that was a really great scene. Those are my 3 things.
I completely agree with you on all of those. See how easy this is, Sean? You just start saying good things about The Last Jedi and you start to like it more.
I came into this video with having to tell myself I need to have the mentality of being open-minded and not trying to convince Joseph about why The Last Jedi is terrible. So that was the easy part. And now I'm going to very casually go through the dislikes and not trying to convince you. But definitely, I think by the end of this, you're going to hate The Last Jedi.
That's impossible.
All right, you do dislikes.
Okay, I do have a few dislikes. And again, as Sean said, this is kind of what started this whole channel, was an email that I sent to Sean about my likes and dislikes, where I started with my dislikes. And by the end, I had written down so many dislikes. I saw the list and I was like, oh, do I actually like The Last Jedi? I mean,
that was my email back to you. I'm like, I thought you said you loved The Last Jedi. It's number 1, and all I see in this email are dislikes.
So I had to narrow it down to just 3, but these are my 3. And I think Sean already talked about this. One of the great things George Lucas does is he's a world builder. There's no doubt in anyone's mind that George Lucas knows how to build a galaxy. And that does not happen in this movie. The only planet that's really built, in my mind, well, I guess there's two, Crate and Cantonica with Canto Bight. And even then, spoiler alert, another one of mine is the Canto Bight scene, so I didn't really like anything on Canto Bight. And it didn't show the galaxy. I mean, it showed like these rich people that really didn't seem to care at all about what was happening in the galaxy when Hosnian Prime just blew up. You know, the entire New Republic has been destroyed, and these people are still gambling. So I'm like, when I came into Episode 8, I thought I would see this like galaxy trying to cope with the destruction of a whole system. And instead, you don't get anything. You get a slow car chase through the universe. You have Octo, which is just 2.5 people. I guess Chewie's there too. And then you have Crate, where again, it's just the first. There's no like galaxy building events.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you kind of bled into the Canto Bight thing, and to piggyback on what you said, it's just so interesting that Hosnian Prime, the entire system has been destroyed, which basically, our understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, there's now a vacuum of power, right? Like, the entire government is obliterated.
I think the Resistance is trying to fill that vacuum, as well as the First Order, right? I guess. We don't even know, though.
But, like, honestly, I don't even know from the movies, does anyone in the galaxy know about the First Order?
That's true. That's a great point.
Do they even know about it? Like, they're off in the unknown regions. They, you know, the Force Awakens is all about how the Resistance, Leia had to start the Resistance because the actual Republic doesn't even believe there's a problem. Mm-hmm. So she breaks off this Resistance to, like, go fight the First Order. They blow up Starkiller Base. And now, immediately after Force Awakens, we're starting Last Jedi. And the First Order doesn't seem to be reeling that badly from Starkiller Base being exploded. It's like, they're back, and they're at full strength, baby. It's like, what is happening? So, yeah, okay. I agree with you on that. That's not even one of my dislikes, but you're bringing up some good stuff here.
This is my question for you, Sean. Do you think it was then a mistake for 8 to come immediately after 7?
Yes.
I agree.
I think that was a major problem, that taking Rian Johnson's plot out of it and where he went with the story, I think anyone would have had a difficult time making Episode 8 feel like a significant movement forward in the story. Because they don't have the luxury of time passing and being able to explain, oh, in the last 3 years this has happened, kind of thing.
Well, and it's because they set it up so poorly in 7. They left it on such a cliffhanger, like we've talked about before. Rian Johnson has no choice but to have to, first of all, answer the question of Rey and Luke right off the bat.
I don't agree with that. I think they could. I don't agree. I think they could have shown some scenes and then done a jump forward like they did in Solo, where they're like 3 years later or something. And they just cut forward like, all right, we see Rey and Luke meet, some conversation goes down or whatever, and it's like, but I think that is very far away from Rian Johnson's vision of what he was trying to do. So,
yeah. My next thing that I disliked, and again alluded to earlier, Canto Bight. I think the main consensus is with Canto Bight is ultimately unsatisfying because everything that happens there doesn't matter, right?
Yeah.
And we can kind of, and I've talked to you about this, we can kind of really dig in deep and try and find little nuggets of something, and maybe Rian Johnson was trying to do this, and maybe he was trying to do that, and the whole thing about the war is overall bad and stuff, but again, it's just not satisfying in the end. I think it's cool looking. I think the fact that it's a casino, I think, is a beautiful set piece, and it's just wonderfully done, but it's just can we just all just agree that Lando should have been the guy that they find? I mean, how better of a place to put Lando than in a casino, right?
Hello, what have we here?
It was, yeah, it all starts with the Maz Kanata scene, which people have criticized. Like, it just seems out of place and weird.
Yep.
Oh, yes, he can.
Almost just like, oh yeah, she's a character from The Force Awakens. Let's put her back in here to have some continuity. And it's like kind of out of place. But the whole Canto Bight scene, Lando would have been good in that scene. But really the whole scene to me just kind of seems serendipitous. It's like they get there, they see the guy they're supposed to contact as the code breaker. They don't. They get thrown in jail for basically like illegal parking on the beach, which is like, okay, you're throwing people in jail for like illegally parking our ships now. So that's how we're cracking down on Canto Bight on illegal parking.
Yep, those are the shuttle parkers.
And then they happen to be thrown in a jail where there just happens to be another master codebreaker hacker guy that just happens to say, yeah, I'll come along with you. That just happens to go off and somehow steal a starship with BB-8 and just happens to find them on the cliff like, hey, I'm here with a ship to take you away. Like, the whole thing is like, what is happening? This is like just no explanation. So many weird, like, things that shouldn't have happened just happen on Canto Bight to progress the story because Rian Johnson needs it to progress.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And
sorry, we're still in your dislike.
And let's not even bring up the father chase. Well, I'm just not a fan of chase scenes anyway. I don't like the pod race scene in Phantom Menace. I don't like the chase scene with Zam in I don't like the pod race scene at all. I don't like it. Is that crazy to you?
Oh my gosh, that's super crazy. When I was 10 years old, pod racing was the greatest thing I'd ever seen. The pod racing video game is like a great all-time video game.
I'm not talking as a 10-year-old. I'm talking as me today. I skip over the pod racing scene every time.
That's interesting. I feel like it's exciting and fun. I like pod racing. Now this is podcasting. That should be our new slogan.
It's already taken by a different podcast.
Well, I don't watch other podcasts, okay? I only watch ours.
That's right. Anyway.
I am 50 of the 100 views that we get on this podcast.
Okay, that's pretty good. And can I just also mention, according to the deleted scenes, the father chase was supposed to be 4 minutes longer. Yeah. There's four more additional minutes of the father chase.
Well, then I didn't ever expect to say this, but I'll say it. Then I think Rian Johnson made a good decision in his editing. Words I never thought I would say.
Okay, can I get to my last one here?
Yes.
The last thing that just bothers me the most about The Last Jedi is the death of Admiral Akbar. First of all, I'll just say this. The first time viewing, I didn't realize he died until they're on the Millennium Falcon, and I'm like, wait, where's Akbar? Like, the whole scene where the lady's up there talking, she says, like, everyone's dead, and Akbar, and so-and-so, and so-and-so, but Leia's okay. I just glossed over that. I was like, these are just words to me. And then later on, I'm like, wait, Akbar died? Like, what a terrible way to get rid of such a beloved character.
Yeah, I think that was handled poorly. I did catch it in the theater. And
did
felt
you catch it?
like...
Okay, sorry. Did you catch it when the bomb hit them, or when she was making her speech?
When she was making her speech, which I thought was everything you needed to know about what a poor decision it was. It's like, you can't really tell that Akbar died, so we have to have a throwaway line later in a different scene to let the audience know, by the way, we just killed Admiral Akbar. I know you didn't see it because there's no way you would have known that.
I think we've thrown out a lot of hyperboles on this podcast, and I'm well aware of that. But I have no other way to describe. When that Star Destroyer, am I saying that right? Vader's ship, that's a Star Destroyer, right?
Super Star Destroyer.
Super Star Destroyer, sorry. When the Super Star Destroyer goes down into the Death Star, and you see Akbar just kind of lean back in his chair and put his head down, that is so I love that so much. It's so great. Like this relief, this burden of like, we might actually make it, just hits him. Oh, oh. That's why I really like him. And also Admiral Raddus in Rogue One, but, he's a polar, what are they called again?
Mon Calamari.
Mon
He's from the
Calamari.
polar regions.
Right.
You convinced me. I take it back. I should not have questioned the belovedness of Admiral Akbar. He is awesome, and he was done a disservice in The Last Jedi.
Nice.
Okay, are we going to my dislikes now?
Oh, gosh. Do we have time? That's the video, folks. Thanks.
How long have we done right now?
So I think 25 minutes. Probably 20 minutes.
I need at least 20 minutes just to unpack my dislikes. Right? So I don't want to see any edits. I want this one full take, no cuts. Even though I got what I thought I wanted, I came out very disappointed with the portrayal of Luke Skywalker in this movie. And I understand that some people loved, the direction they took Luke, but I just think it was a huge disservice to the character of Luke Skywalker, and I have specific moments that I really didn't like from Luke Skywalker. Okay. The first one.
These are sub-points to your first point?
Yes, this is a sub-point to unpack how I feel about Luke. So, the first moment that I feel like I did not like that they did with Luke was portraying him as someone that had this impulse to murder his nephew. I thought that was so dumb that this man, Luke Skywalker, the new Grand Master of this new Jedi Order, and he is training this new crop of Jedi, is going to go into Ben Solo's hut and I feel a strong presence of the dark side. Oh, I might as well kill him. I might as well just kill him right now. Like, that is so uncharacteristic of not only Luke, but a human being in general. That is not relatable at all. And I have heard people try to defend this as this is like a good character development to show that even Luke had doubts and had things that he had to work through and made a bad decision and made a mistake. I'm like, a mistake is being on a diet and eating a brownie. A mistake is not going into someone's living space and igniting a lightsaber seconds away from, I'm going to murder this person in cold blood because I have a feeling that he might be evil, even though technically he has not done anything evil as of yet.
We don't know that. We don't know what Ben Solo's done.
Okay, fine.
And I disagree with you because we see Luke prey on his emotions. Have you ever seen the Return of the Jedi movie? Do you remember when he almost struck down the Emperor because of his anger? When he was beating his father down? That's Luke's emotions coming through. He's not a fully trained Jedi, and I don't feel like ever truly becomes a fully trained Jedi until he defeats... Well, sorry, let me rephrase this. He doesn't become a truly formed Jedi until he becomes one with the Force. He still is a man of emotion, and his emotions get to him, I agree, in Ben Solo's hut, and he regrets it immediately, and his emotions get to him when he goes and becomes a hermit. He's not a perfect Jedi, and I don't think we can hold Luke to this perfect Jedi standard.
You failed, Your Highness. I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
Every word that you just said is wrong. Okay. So, first of all, the scene in The Return of the Jedi is so completely different because that scene brings up another subplot of my Luke thing that you segued perfectly into is Luke's fatal flaw in the original trilogy is that he would abandon the Jedi Code to help the ones he loved. That is why he tries to strike down the Emperor, because he sees the helplessness of the rebels on the forest moon of Endor, the rebel fleet being destroyed, and he thinks, is this how I save my friends? He abandons his teachings with Yoda on Dagobah before he is ready to go to Bespin in Cloud City to help his friends.
You must complete the training.
I can't keep the vision out of my head. They're my friends. I gotta help them.
You must not go.
But Han and Leia will die if I don't.
Striking down Kylo Ren in no way is connected to helping a loved one. In fact, it's the opposite. If he loves Ben Solo as his nephew, he would think the character Fatal Flaw is he would make a decision that isn't in line with his values or is even detrimental to his own safety to help, not to strike down. There's no reason to get emotional and angry watching Kylo Ren sleep in that scene. There's no reason. Like, there's no motivation or trigger to make him so consumed with anger that he's going to strike down Kylo Ren like he was consumed with that in The Return of the Jedi. So I don't agree with that.
Okay, let me just have a quick rebuttal here.
Okay.
I agree with you there. I agree that in the moment that we see in the movie, it doesn't seem like there's anything really to cause Luke to striking down Ben other than what we hear Luke say, that he senses the dark side in him and he needs to kill him, right? But we don't know what that ultimately was because we haven't seen that. And I hope you would agree that more information is needed to really make a full statement about him going into the hut and trying to kill Ben. More information would be needed.
I think that it's out of character and uncharacteristic. He's uncharacteristic and
things are getting heated. This podcast is getting real.
Okay, so actually this is funny because this one sub point was the one I thought you would agree with me on. I thought you would disagree with me on the other Luke stuff, but this is where I thought I had the common ground with you. Mainly because, Joseph, 2 weeks ago you looked me in my face and told me you hated the whole Chewbacca scene because they made him out to be this murderer and this angry evil beast eating people, but you're okay with them making Luke out to be a murderer? Like, that doesn't make any sense. Luke, it objectively, if we just look at the facts, Luke is much more of a innocent hero type than Chewbacca in the original trilogy. And yet you have a problem with them soiling the image of Chewbacca in your mind of the teddy bear hero, but you're totally fine with Luke just, Kylo probably called him a bad name off screen. We just didn't see it. And so he has, that's why he's so angry. He's just going to kill him.
Who's scruffy looking?
What'd you call me?
Let's just agree to disagree on that one.
Okay.
That's only a sub point of my Luke thing. So I'm going to, let me speed up the Luke stuff.
Okay, here we go. I'll stop talking.
The force projection thing is cool that he's so powerful that he can do that, but ultimately he kind of still goes out like a punk. He's still kind of like a crybaby on Octo. He's like, he won't go with Rey, so he stays. He's like, no, I'm staying here. And then he does the force projection thing to distract the First Order. And so, like, okay, like, the legend of, I understand, I've heard Rian Johnson explain the legend of Luke Skywalker. This was the meaning of it, all this stuff. But I just didn't like it. And I thought so much more could have been done with Luke and still be appropriate to not take away from Rey and Kylo. He could have been a supporting role, but not been this just like plot device where Rian Johnson just needed him to be a certain way just to set up the ending he wanted. Is that enough Luke talk for you?
Oh, yeah. I disagree with so many of those points. I think Luke, I'll just respond to one of them. I think Luke, not Mark Hamill, but Luke ultimately is trying to right the wrong by going to Octo and be a hermit. And I think we kind of hear a little bit about that, about the hubris of the Jedi. Like, I think he really is thinking that if the Jedi Order was to go away, so would the Sith and the evil... Well, I guess it's not the Sith, but the dark side also, because of the balance. I think he really is trying to right the wrong by doing that. But that's just my take.
Yeah, I mean, that's possible, but it goes back to this... It kind of goes back to the argument you made earlier. Well, then if he's not a full-fledged Jedi, why is he sticking so hard to that? Like the hubris of the Jedi, if he's not that involved in the Order. And then when he hears it still goes back to this point. This is where it all comes back. If he believes that, when Rey comes and tells him, your plan isn't working, evil has risen, Kylo is still on the run, Snoke is leading this huge First Order, like, him going and being a hermit has not, has not gotten the intended purpose, if that was his intent.
Well, I agree. That's a good counterpoint, and I feel like maybe he's just so far gone, so far disconnected, he's just like, I don't care anymore. I think that's where we are when we see him. Like, okay, you can tell me all you want, but I'm not helping.
I'm gonna walk out with a laser sword and face down the whole First Order.
Okay. All right, I'll move on. Number 2. Number 2. I think overall, the plot, to sum up, because now I want to try to get through this and not be so lengthy, I think the plot overall is one of the more boring plots of a Star Wars movie because of this reason. While it has good character development, you said this in your dislikes, the scope of the movie is so small. And I actually don't know this. Maybe you can explain this to me, because I guarantee you've seen The Last Jedi more than I have. It sounds to me like at one point they talk about how they only have fuel left for 18 hours. Is that right?
Uh-huh.
So are we to believe that everything on Octo and everything on Canto Bight and everything before the Holdo maneuver happens within 18 hours?
No, we're not supposed to believe that. And I believe it was one of the Lucasfilm, and I agree, it's confusing because, so what, Rey's trained in 18 hours? Someone from the Lucasfilm Story Group said that time was passing differently in different places of the galaxy.
Okay. Kind of like, what was that movie? Interstellar.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's fine. It's still to my point, the fact that someone from the Lucasfilm Story Group had to explain that is ridiculous.
Yep.
Because the plot is very confusing, where it's like, okay, so we have now, we talked about this already, right when Force Awakens ends, we pick up The Last Jedi, and it's like, bam, 18 hours later, the movie's over in the timeline. We haven't really progressed that much farther. Most of the stuff outside of the crate sequence, to me, is kind of irrelevant. Like, who cares that it happened? Like, it didn't do anything to help the story or move the story forward in any way. And so it's this kind of 18-hour slow speed chase. I think back to the Rogue One scene at the very end when the Rebel fleet is trying to not retreat, but they're leaving because they have the plan, so they're on their way out. And Vader's Star Destroyer comes in the hyperspace on a dime right into the action.
Uh-huh.
I'm thinking, you would think 40 years later, when The Last Jedi is happening, that someone in the First Order could say, half the fleet, go into light speed, 4 light years that way, and then come back the other way on a dime, and we'll just surround them. Like, how in the world are the first, like, this is crazy. You guys can go just a little bit faster than what our cannons can reach. But you're going to run out of gas soon. You don't have any more coaxium on that ship. So in 18 hours, your butt is ours. Like, the whole thing is so dumb and ridiculous. It makes the story really boring to me because it's like, we don't see anything. We just see this slow speed chase. So the Poe Dameron arc, I feel like ultimately is kind of useless. Like, I'm like, okay, cool. We can see Poe's journey to being a leader. But that doesn't carry the movie. We've already talked at length, the Rose Finn arc, Canto Bight, all of that ends up being completely irrelevant, completely useless. And of all the characters, I feel like gives us the least amount of character development. Mm-hmm. So they spend this huge chunk of the movie in this huge sequence that gives very little. There's very little payoff or value for how much they invest in this. All right, so number 3, the last thing, I'll wrap this up quickly. I said this last week, the lack of connectivity between The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi ultimately made me feel like there's no clear direction for this trilogy. I do not like that. This is more of an external thing that I don't like about The Last Jedi. The Last Jedi as a whole shows me that there's major disconnects between the films, possibly leading to another major disconnect with Episode 9. Mm-hmm. And the Disney era of Star Wars has been rocky at best, I feel like, creatively. I mean, we heard a ton about the reshoots they had to do for Rogue One. We heard a ton about, obviously, the Han Solo movie totally fired the directors and brought on Ron Howard halfway through the project. They had to reshoot the majority of the movie. They fired the Colin Trevorrow, who is supposed to be the director for Episode 9, and are bringing back J.J. Abrams. So there's kind of a lot of, I feel like, turmoil at Lucasfilm in terms of what's the direction we're going here. It just illustrates the point. JJ did have an outline for 7, 8, and 9, and Ryan just decides, I'm not using any of that. I'm just going to do what I want to do, which kind of throws off 9, because then I'm reading reports that Colin Trevorrow, the Episode 9 director, had already started writing his script, and he was just quoted as saying that he had shared that story with George Lucas and Luke Skywalker. And Mark Hamill is on record saying that he was on the same page with Colin Trevorrow on where they wanted to take Luke, implying that Colin Trevorrow wanted Luke to be alive for Episode 9 because he had plans for Luke in Episode 9, and he was fighting with Kathleen Kennedy and Rian Johnson on changing Last Jedi. They didn't want to, so they fired Colin Trevorrow because they had creative differences. He needed the story to be different.
He didn't want to take the story where Rian Johnson left it.
Those are the 3 things. Those are the 3 things that I disliked about The Last Jedi.
Only 3?
Yeah. It really was like 50 things in 3 buckets.
Yeah, that's true.
Kind of 3 themes of dislike.
Overflowing buckets. Let me just respond to your dislikes. Well, your last one. I ultimately agree with most of the things you brought up, minus some of the Luke stuff. I really like the way they took Luke, and we don't have to rehash that. But I agree the overall storytelling of Star Wars needs some sort of giant reset button, and I don't know what that reset button is. There needs to be something that says, okay, hold on, what are we going to do in 10 years? Like, what's the movie we're going to do in 10 years? And how can we build to that? What's the movie going to be? You know they're going to be pumping out movies. They're not going to ever stop. They've got to come up with something. This kind of hodgepodge mess of throwing stuff together and letting each director do his own thing, I totally agree, is the wrong way to go. I don't think that Rian Johnson should have had the ultimate say about what happens.
I don't know who you are or where you came from, but from now on, you do as I tell you, okay?
I think that should be up to Lucasfilm Story Group. I mean, him in connection with Lucasfilm Story Group, Kathleen Kennedy, executive producers, J.J. Abrams, other directors of other movies and TV shows. It should be they need to have like a retreat or something up in Park City, Utah, and get together and have some sort of team building activity to decide what they're going to do. Because if every movie is going to divide the fan base like this, I'm not looking forward to the next few years of Star Wars movies. Because it's so hard to be a Star Wars fan, especially a fan of The Last Jedi, where I came out of the theater like, that was great, right, everyone? That was a great movie, And everyone's like, you shut up, that was terrible.
You Disney shill.
I'm like, oh, it's like the prequels all over again. Oh, it's not good? It may take me a few years to start to see the flaws of The Last Jedi, but as of right now, I still love it.
If you're going to give a director the creative liberty to do what they want kind of unchecked, that should be in the standalone movies. The 8th movie in a 9-part saga is not the time to do it. I just feel like you are dealing with characters that people have lived with and enjoyed for 40 years. And to change them so fundamentally, you cannot tell me that they didn't know that this was going to be a problem for a lot of people.
This is our second time recording this ending to our podcast. After the first time, we thought, we kind of feel a little bit down in the dumps with how we're leaving things. Like the future.
That was like a kind of a depressing ending where just like the energy sucked out of the room.
Talking about the future of Lucasfilm and Star Wars, and we kind of got ourselves into a little bit of a sadness pile there. But I think Sean and I had some time to recoup. I think we are both excited for the future of Star Wars in general. There's some great TV shows coming out. There's other movies. Hopefully this Obi-Wan movie actually comes to pass.
Hello there.
I'm not worried about the future of good Star Wars movies coming out. I just think there needs to be a big reset hit on the saga films and where we're taking these stories. But with that, Sean, I think we should leave our podcast at that. What should our viewers do now?
I think they should comment. They should comment why they liked The Last Jedi, why they didn't like The Last Jedi. There is still so much good in The Last Jedi and cool things we see and great character development.
You're preaching to the choir here.
Okay,
I want to hear who's on my side about who loves The Last Jedi. I want to find some people out there because I know they're out there.
And I think Disney is just in the growing pains of figuring out how to best execute this Star Wars vision. We were talking about they've done 4 movies in 2.5 years, where we had 6 movies previous to that in like 35 years. So there's a lot of movies out really quick. I think they'll right the ship and they will get everything tightened up creatively and have a strong vision for what they want to do. So I'm not worried about that. And I think the best part about Star Wars is talking about what you like and what, the things that you share instead of always debating what you disagree on with Star Wars. So leave in the comments below things you loved about The Last Jedi. What did you not like about The Last Jedi? Let's keep talking about the movie. We're excited to keep talking about Star Wars in the podcast. And until the next time, Joseph,
keep those socks
salty. Keep them salty, people. Keep those socks salty.
Just keep shaking that salt on those socks.
All right. See ya.
Bye.